Well, hello everyone. I apologize for not posting for 2 weeks, but I went on a trip and then life proceeded to get busy. So, here we are. But I'm back now. That being said, you remember how I killed off Adyen back in chapter 1? Yeah, that was really suspicious, wasn't it? Yeah. Word is, I'm just gonna say it because we're gonna find out in like 3 seconds anyway. He's not dead. I didn't kill him off. This chapter is from his point of view. So, here we go. Chapter 3. Adyen. The world hazed back into view around me. Dark blurs danced before my eyes, and I had a hard time thinking through the fog still clouding my brain. What happened? I tried to remember, but the first thought that came to mind was, where is Aster? The sudden surge of desperation made me lurch upright, and a jolt of pain sliced through the fuzziness, bringing everything into full clarity. The harsh rattle of chains jangled loudly in my ears, and I understood why it was so dark. Bricks of stone rose up around me, culminating in a darkened ceiling I could barely make out. Straw littered the chilly floor beneath my body, and I realized I probably carried some of it in my hair. The door was made of reinforced wood. Probably locked. "Aster!" I shouted, my voice loud in this tiny room. "Aster, can you hear me?" Listening, I got no reply. Only the sounds of heavy footsteps treading above my head. I waited until they faded away, and then I started shouting again. "Aster!" No one ever answered. My breath coming shaky, I shifted backwards slightly. Sharp pain twinged through my shoulder, and my last memories came back into full focus. Lars Alfred. He'd had me in his grasp. He'd driven the dagger down, and I felt it pierce my flesh. But I wasn't dead. Why wasn't I dead? He'd promised me, back when we first made our deal, that he'd kill me if he ever caught me smuggling out anything that he hadn't expressly given me. He made good on his promise. And I was still alive. I fought to get my breath back under control, but I was still worried, scared about my sister. The fact she wasn't responding to my shouts could mean one of only 2 things. The first being that I'd done my job and she made it out safely. The other was that she was with Lars now, and I couldn't bear to finish a thought that filled me with such rage I thought I would burst. Because I'd broken my promise. The deal was void, and now Lars could do whatever he liked with Aster. Even if she'd gotten away, Lars would be hunting for her. She was no longer safe. And it was my fault. Why did I let her take the money? It wasn't worth this. I needed to fix this as soon as possible. I needed to get out of here, needed to find Aster, and then we needed to grab Talia and the money and run. Run as far and fast as we could until Lars couldn't reach us anymore. Anywhere, as long as it meant the girls would be safe. I examined the cell once again, searching for any potential ways out. The door was locked, of course. I shoved on it several times to make sure, and it held firm. The handle slipped through my fingers. I did take note of a rather odd-looking window in the far corner of the room. Instead of having bars, it had glass set into a frame. It sat at about head level, and I was reasonably certain I could fit my shoulders through it if I tried. There was, however, the problem of the chains. The heavy manacles were locked securely around my wrists, and the pair of chains that snaked away from them twisted away into the darkness. There was enough length that I could pace from one end of the cell to the other, but no more than that. If I tried to escape through the window, I would be stopped before I even began. Sighing, I slumped down to sit with my back pressed against the wall. With no immediate avenues of escape, I would have to wait, something I detested with all of my being. Every second that passed, Lars would come closer and closer to reaching Aster, and I could not allow that to happen. I couldn't just sit here, useless, but I knew that I must. There just weren't any other options, just like there hadn't been then. I thought back to the night when we'd first met Lars Alfred, back before we knew how dangerous he really was. Aster and I had only been 18 back then, young and tough, but still very, very inexperienced. A man had approached us from a dark alleyway as we passed by, a stylish hat pulled low over his brow. The man casually reached out and grabbed Aster's arm, yanking her around to face him. We both cried out in surprise and fear. Lars examined Aster for a long moment, his eyes glinting in the light as they roved over her, his expression reading a kind of hunger that terrified me down to my very bones. My hands clenched into fists. Aster's hands reached for her gloves so she could remove them, but Lars gave her a shake so she was forced to stop. I bristled. Now, none of that, he tisked. Why don't you come with me? Let her go, I shouted. Aster fought back, but the man was surprisingly strong. All attempts were fruitless. The man's gaze slipped from Aster to me. His lip curled. And why should I, may I ask? If I want a woman, is she not mine to take? I gritted my teeth. It doesn't work like that. Let her go. I prepared myself to fight this man, even though I knew I wasn't very likely to win. If you really want her back that badly, then I suppose we can arrange something. Anything you want. In that moment, all I wanted was this horrible, creepy man to let go of my sister. I didn't care about the consequences or anything else. I'll do anything you want. Anything I want, The man mercifully dropped his hand. Do you know who I am, boy? Aster scrambled backwards toward me. Don't, she hissed in my ear as she passed. Just don't. I wish I had listened to her. Making sure my sister was safely behind me, I squared my shoulders. No, I replied. I don't know who you are, but I know your type, and that's enough. The man chuckled. Child, you have no idea of my type, but you made me a promise. Anything I want. And I know what I want. My blood chilled in my veins. Anything but Aster. Anything. Anyone but her. Behind me, Aster let out a soft groan that said, You really need to be more careful, Adyen. This guy isn't to be trusted. I knew that, but I saw no other options. Both of you are mine now, the man said, servants of the Dark Hearts. Anything I bid you do, you will do it, no questions asked. No money, no status. If you do anything other than what I tell you, this promise is void and I get the girl. You will die. Do you understand? My lips were dry, but I licked them nervously. Understood, sir. Good, the man said. Shall we shake? And that was how I destroyed both of our futures. That was the moment that led me sitting here, in a jail cell who knew where, and Aster out there somewhere alone. Not that I was worried she couldn't handle herself. The problem was, sometimes she could go too far. There were moments when only my voice could calm her and rein her in. If I didn't, then so many innocent lives would be lost. We weren't the kind of people who did that. Lars had never sent us to serve as assassins, but I had always gotten the sneaking suspicion that it was only a matter of time. I suppose we had effectively gotten out of that now. But the alternative... I closed my eyes. Aster, please, if you're out there, stay safe. I'm coming back for you. We're going to be okay. Just give me time to fix this. No sooner had the final thought been fully formed than I heard footsteps once more. But they weren't above me. This set was on this floor, heading straight towards the door. My door. What's going to happen now? I forced myself onto my feet, trying to ignore the pain in my shoulder as I stepped back and pressed my back to the wall. Whoever was coming certainly wasn't going to be friendly. I didn't know what to expect, and I wanted to be prepared for all contingencies. Why was someone coming now? Were they here to question me? Torture me? Demand to tell them where my sister was? That was something I would never tell the Darkhearts ever. Not in 1,000 years. Not if they cut off my fingers and ground them into tiny bits before my eyes. Not if they killed me. I would take the secret to my grave. Hopefully, Esther would be smart and get out of the city as soon as possible. The footsteps got louder, closer than ever. They slowed and came to a stop right before my door. I braced myself. A key rattled in the lock. I drew in a long, slow breath. The handle turned. Desperately, I wished I had something, anything I could use as a weapon. My pistol had been taken while I was unconscious. Nothing but the straw in the room. The door swung open, allowing a bright golden beam of light into the cell. I blinked in the sudden brightness, temporarily blind. As my vision recovered, I found myself squinting angrily at two very tall and imposing guards. "What do you want?" I demanded, as hostile as possible. The guard on the left snorted. "You think you're in a position to ask questions, boy. But no one asks questions but the boss." Suddenly he was right in my face. I blinked and nodded slowly. "Glad we understand each other." The chains rattled, and I realized he was removing my manacles. I'd barely considered the possibility of freedom before the second guard held up the iron handcuffs I'd be wearing. "You're coming with us, boy," he said, "and you're going to behave if you don't want to end up dead."